It's 11:43 p.m. Your phone lights up, one new notification, a message from your boss. Can we talk tomorrow? That's it. No explanation, no emoji, no context. You stare at those 4 words for less than 5 seconds. But inside your mind, an entire movie has already begun. Did I make a mistake? Am I getting fired? Maybe I shouldn't have said that during today's meeting. What if I've ruined everything? By midnight, you've imagined losing your job. By 1 in the morning, you're calculating how long your savings will last. By 2, you've somehow convinced yourself that your career might be over. The next morning, you walk into the office carrying the emotional weight of disasters that haven't happened. Then your boss smiles. I just wanted to ask if you'd like to lead our new project. The catastrophe never existed, only the prediction did. And yet, the fear you felt last night was completely real. Your heart raced, your muscles tightened, you couldn't sleep, which raises a strange question. If your brain is intelligent enough to build rockets, write symphonies, and discover antibiotics, why is it so incredibly bad at predicting your future? Or maybe it's not trying to predict the future at all. Maybe it's trying to prevent one specific kind of future. Most people believe they think this way because they're pessimistic. I'm just an anxious person. I've always been a worrier. My brain always assumes the worst. It sounds true after all. Think about how often your mind jumps to negative conclusions. A friend doesn't reply. They must be upset. Someone looks serious. They probably don't like you. Your partner says, "We need to talk." Your stomach sinks before the conversation even begins. Positive possibilities rarely arrive first. Your brain almost always chooses the darker explanation. Why? Surely a healthy brain should be optimistic. Wouldn't that make life easier? Surprisingly, evolution had a very different priority. Imagine standing at the edge of a forest 20,000 years ago. You hear something moving in the bushes. There are 2 possibilities. It's the wind, or it's a predator. Suppose your brain assumes the best. It's probably nothing. If you're wrong, you might not survive long enough to make that mistake twice. Now imagine the opposite. Your brain assumes danger. Your heart speeds up. You step back. You become alert. If it turns out to be only the wind, you've lost a few seconds. That's all. From an evolutionary perspective, those 2 mistakes are not equal. One costs energy, the other could cost your life. So over thousands of generations, natural selection favored brains that made one particular kind of error the safer one. Better to imagine danger that isn't there than ignore danger that is. That ancient survival strategy still exists inside your skull today, only the threats have changed. Instead of wondering whether something in the bushes might attack you, your brain wonders whether one unanswered email means your career is in trouble. Instead of scanning the forest, it scans conversations, facial expressions, text messages, social media posts, tiny pieces of information that might hint at future problems. The machinery is ancient, the environment is modern, and that's where the first plot twist appears. Your brain is not addicted to negative thinking. It's addicted to prediction. Negative predictions simply happen to feel safer. Think about weather forecasts. If meteorologists consistently underestimated hurricanes, people would be unprepared. But if they occasionally overestimate a storm, most people would rather prepare than regret it later. Your brain follows a surprisingly similar strategy. It doesn't ask, "What's most likely to happen?" It often asks, "What's the most dangerous thing that could happen?" Because if it prepares for the worst, it believes you'll be ready for anything less. At first, that sounds almost intelligent, until you realize something unsettling. If preparing for the worst truly protected us, why do chronic worriers often feel less prepared instead of more? Why do people who spend hours imagining every possible disaster rarely feel reassured? And why does every solved worry seem to be replaced by another one almost immediately? That's because something deeper is happening beneath your thoughts. Your brain isn't chasing worst-case scenarios because it enjoys fear. It's chasing something that feels even more valuable. Control, or at least the illusion of it. Control, or at least the illusion of it. Think about the last time you had to wait for important news. Maybe it was after a job interview, a medical test, an exam, or a message from someone you cared about. Nothing was happening. No new information was arriving. Yet your mind refused to stay still. Instead, it started building possibilities. Maybe I answered that question poorly. Maybe they noticed something I didn't. Maybe I should have said this instead. One scenario became 5. 5 became 50. Oddly enough, it felt productive. You weren't doing anything in the outside world, but inside your head, it felt as though you were working, planning, preparing, protecting yourself. That's because your brain quietly made a trade. It exchanged certainty for the feeling of control. The two are not the same. You cannot control tomorrow, but if your brain keeps analyzing tomorrow, it creates the comforting illusion that it's doing something useful. Imagine sitting in an airport during heavy fog. Your flight has been delayed. The pilot cannot take off because visibility is too low. Now imagine a passenger who keeps walking back and forth between the departure board and the window every 2 minutes. Does checking the runway make the fog disappear? Of course not. But psychologically, it feels better than doing nothing. Overthinking works in much the same way. Your brain keeps checking the mental runway, hoping reality has somehow changed. Not because it expects a different answer, because checking feels like action, and action has always increased the odds of survival. Thousands of years ago, that instinct often helped if food was becoming scarce. Thinking through different strategies mattered. If a storm was approaching, preparing mattered. The problem is that modern uncertainty often has no immediate solution. You can't think your way into making someone reply faster. You can't analyze your way into tomorrow's interview result. You can't rehearse every possible conversation life might throw at you, yet your brain doesn't know when preparation has become repetition. It simply keeps searching, and that's where the trap becomes almost invisible. Most people believe they're searching for answers. They're actually searching for relief. Think about what happens after you've worried for an hour. Do you usually discover something completely new? Rarely. What you often experience instead is a brief moment where your brain says, "Okay, I think we've covered everything." For a few minutes, the anxiety softens, not because the problem disappeared, because your brain temporarily felt more prepared. That tiny sense of relief is incredibly important. Without realizing it, your brain starts associating overthinking with emotional safety. The cycle becomes self-reinforcing. Uncertainty appears. You overthink. You experience a brief sense of relief. Your brain learns. Next time uncertainty appears, think even harder. This is one reason the habit becomes so difficult to break. Not because overthinking always feels good, because occasionally it feels less bad, and the brain is remarkably good at repeating behaviors that reduce discomfort, even briefly. Then something even more surprising begins to happen. Your attention starts changing. Imagine buying a new car. Suddenly, you notice the same model everywhere, not because more people bought it overnight, because your brain has decided it's relevant. Psychologists call this selective attention. Your brain constantly filters millions of pieces of information, allowing only a tiny fraction into conscious awareness. Now imagine your brain decides that failure is the most important thing to watch for. Guess what it begins noticing? Every awkward silence, every delayed reply, every critical comment, every uncertain expression. Meanwhile, the signs that everything is actually fine quietly fade into the background. A smile, a compliment, a successful meeting, a message saying, "Thanks, that really helped." Those moments often disappear almost unnoticed, not because they aren't real, because they don't match what your prediction system is searching for. This is closely related to the brain's well-documented negativity bias. Negative information tends to capture and hold our attention more strongly than equally positive information. Not because life is mostly negative, but because missing a potential threat historically carried greater consequences than overlooking a pleasant surprise. The result is astonishing. Your brain slowly creates a world that appears to confirm its own fears, not by changing reality, but by changing what you notice. And once that happens, the worst-case scenario no longer feels like a possibility. It starts feeling like evidence. Evidence that the world is dangerous. Evidence that people will disappoint you. Evidence that something is always about to go wrong. Except, the evidence isn't objective. It's filtered. And if your brain learned to build that filter, there is one extraordinary possibility. It can learn to build a different one, a different filter. Not one that ignores danger, not one that forces fake positivity, but one that finally understands the difference between possibility and probability. Because those two words quietly shape almost every anxious thought you've ever had. Think back to the story that opened this video. One message. Can we talk tomorrow? Your brain immediately generated a worst-case scenario. Was it possible that you were about to lose your job? Yes. Almost anything is possible. But was it probable? Your brain never stopped long enough to ask. And that's the hidden flaw in the prediction system. It evolved to ask, could this happen? Modern life usually requires a different question. How likely is this to happen? Those questions sound almost identical. In reality, they lead to completely different lives. Imagine hearing a noise outside your house late at night. Could someone be trying to break in? Yes. Could it simply be the wind moving a trash bin? Also yes. The ancient brain gives both possibilities immediate attention because, thousands of years ago, failing to investigate could be costly. The modern brain has something our ancestors rarely had. Evidence, statistics, experience, context. Yet when anxiety takes over, your prediction system quietly ignores all of them. It treats possibility as proof, and that's when imagination becomes indistinguishable from reality. Here's something fascinating. The human brain responds to vividly imagined threats in ways that overlap with how it responds to real ones. Your heart rate can increase. Stress hormones can rise. Your muscles become tense. Your breathing changes. From your body's perspective, the disaster you're imagining can begin to feel surprisingly real, which explains something almost everyone has experienced. By the time the event finally arrives, you're already exhausted, not because reality was difficult, because you've been living through dozens of imaginary versions of it for days. The presentation hasn't happened yet, but you've already failed it 50 times. The conversation hasn't started, but you've already argued through every possible outcome. The interview hasn't begun, but you've already been rejected in your imagination over and over again. Your brain believes it's preparing you. Instead, it's consuming the energy you would actually need when the moment arrives. And here's the final plot twist. Your brain isn't addicted to worst-case scenarios. It's addicted to the feeling that predicting them might keep you safe. That's a crucial difference, because it means the real habit isn't fear. The real habit is seeking certainty through prediction. Once you understand that, something remarkable becomes possible. You stop asking, how do I stop thinking about bad things? Instead, you ask, what is my brain trying to protect me from? Sometimes the answer is failure, sometimes rejection, sometimes disappointment. But underneath all of them is something even simpler: uncertainty. And uncertainty isn't an emergency. It's the price of being alive. Every meaningful relationship begins with uncertainty. Every career begins with uncertainty. Every dream begins with uncertainty. If you waited until uncertainty disappeared, you would never begin anything worth doing. The goal, then, isn't to silence your prediction system. That would be impossible. In many situations, it's incredibly useful. It helps you plan, avoid genuine risks, learn from experience. The goal is something much more realistic: to teach your brain that not every possibility deserves the same amount of attention, because attention is expensive. Every minute spent rehearsing disasters is a minute not spent living the life you're trying to protect. Think back to that message one last time. Can we talk tomorrow? Nothing about those words changed. The message is exactly the same, but you have. Now you can see what your brain was doing all along. It wasn't predicting the future. It was filling empty space with the safest story it knew. The problem is, the safest story biologically is rarely the most accurate story psychologically, and perhaps that's the greatest irony of all. The brain that has helped humanity survive for hundreds of thousands of years can sometimes become so focused on protecting your future that it quietly steals your present. So the next time your mind begins constructing another disaster, before reality has had a chance to speak, pause for just a moment. Ask yourself one question. Is my brain showing me what's most likely to happen, or simply what it thinks would be safest to prepare for? That single question creates a small but powerful gap, a gap between prediction and reality, between fear and evidence, between imagination and truth. And in that gap, you regain something. Anxiety quietly took away, not certainty, not perfect confidence, something far more valuable, the freedom to let tomorrow arrive before deciding what tomorrow means.